Come and enjoy a day of diesel, dirt, steam and smoke. Booleroo's Steam and Traction Rally at the Booleroo Centre Oval. Dam scooping using 2 Fowler steam engines, the only display of its kind in the world. See a world-class display of veteran and vintage tractors and rollers, stationary engines, motor vehicles, ploughing machines and other farming memorabilia. Tickets at the gate from 7 a.m, with the swap meet at 8 and food available all day. A great time for the family and enthusiasts alike.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you here today. Great conditions. We have got various things for you to look at. The blacksmith shop seems to be fairly popular.
Borax. Everybody know what borax is? Some of the older people know. It's washing powder. So we use it for a flux, for a welding flux. And what the flux does is it melts into a liquid and it floats all the impurities away from the weld, so you've just got clean metal to weld. Okay, this is made out of a motorcycle chain with the chromium and all the different metals, the carbon steel in it.
go.
Engines have arrived. We're setting a Australian record with the number of new ways in one place in Australia, so you won't see any more of them, that many anyway. The new way engines are very, very rare all over the world. The previous record was, I think, either 6 or 8. We've exceeded that by about 4 or 5 folds. So come down and have a look at these very pretty, unique engines. His name is Greg Dix. Greg, do you want to just tell us a little quick story about your tractor?
Yeah, it's a Farm A 1944 model that I'm restoring. It's a combination of some 44 chassis with 1946 parts that replace those bits I didn't have. I bought parts in from the United States to be able to make it more authentic. Front tyres and rims are from the United States, the mufflers from the United States, gauges and things. Trying to restore it to as sympathetically as I can to a Farm all own.
Thank you very much, Greg. This is how a tractor looks half restored. They should end up in that lovely red international colour. And as you can see, the project is almost finished. Congratulations, Greg. Looks fine. Lance Bulldog. This is one of Booleroo's tractors that lives in the shed here. We have a magnificent collection of Lance Bulldog tractors, renowned for being one of the best in the Southern Hemisphere. I can't give you the year on this one because I don't know it. Thank you. Driven by Grant. Here we have a 1926 cross-engine case, model 1832. Driven by Headley Cock. The driver is as renowned as the tractor because Headley is the farmer in this area. But these cross-engine cases are a magnificent unit. Very few of them around in Australia. Here we have a Matthew Harris 44K, driven by Jeff Nichols from the Booleroo Club. And Matthew Harris put out a whole variety of tractors. This is one of their middle varieties, and he's towing a 1920 fertiliser spreader in its original condition, which comes from a homestead in Clare. Well, here we have a Minneapolis
after by collectors, and again belongs to the Booleroo Steam and Traction Preservation Society. This particular unit was used for pulling foxthorns and those sort of bushes, and it's done very little work in its life. Here we have an Alice Chalmers, just not quite sure of the model, I think it's a Model U. Jimmy, the man who did all the bag loading display. Good on you, Jim. You're doing a great job. Just coming up to the square, we have a Showman 40K. This is an opposing twin-cylinder motored tractor. The first of the Chamberlain models, made in Perth, Western Australia. Magnificent tractor in their day, and they got a lovely sound to them, as you can hear. 40k means it's 40 horsepower roughly. Thank you, Lynn. Lynn Brandon is the driver, very well known here in Booleroo, a stalwart of the club. Without him and others like him, the club wouldn't exist. Here we have a roughly about a 1945-50 era Fordson E27N, nicely restored, driven by Neil Chapman from Clare. Thank you, Neil. Coming up, we have a Chamberlain Super 70. Chamberlain's put out a whole variety of tractors, starting with that unit we saw just a moment ago. The one after this was the Super 90. Sought after by many a collector, but even this unit is just one of those magnificent tractors that everyone would love to have. Here we have a little grey Fergie. I think it's the petrol Kero one, so it's a TD Ferguson. Very, very popular small tractor. One of the first that was able to have linkage on it, and they were used all throughout small blocks and the Riverland area in South Australia. Here we have another one, very nicely restored. Can't see whether it's a petrol Kero or a diesel. It's a petrol Kero. Just petrol only, magnificently restored. Introduce you to John McWaters.
Yeah, a little TEA20. I think he's 1954.
From where?
From Whyalla, mate. Yeah.
There you are. John's come from Whyalla. The outside exhibitor brought over a lovely example of a Fergie. Thank you, John. Coming up to the square, we have a fairly nicely restored Alice Chalmers Model U. One of their first good, decent-sized tractors, very powerful for their age. Nicely done. Thank you. Here we have a KL Bulldog. The KL means that it was made by Kelly and Lewis, and Kelly and Lewis were based in Melbourne. A very, very popular Bulldog, used a lot throughout the mid-north. That's why there's so many around here. Coming up, we have a McCormick Deering W30. McCormick Deering's made a range of tractors, from a little small orchard one through to this one, which is about mid-size. Very reliable, honest tractor, driven by Lester. Here we have a 1924 McCormick Deering, 1020 horsepower, and very nicely restored. Another one of the Booleroo's collection, driven by Alan Sampson from the Barossa Club. Coming into picture now is a little case Model C. A very, very popular tractor for restorers, very honest, reliable, driven by Jeff Nichols of the Booleroo Club. Thank you, Jeff. The unit coming up now is a Fordson E27N petrol Kero, driven by Tom Chapman from Hill River, towing a hay rake with an operator on it, and as you can see, he's working it now. The operator pulls the lever to lift it and dump a big pile of hay and straw in one row so that it can be collected later on. Here we have a Chamberlain 236. Chamberlain put out their tractors with a whole different variety of engines, and I think this one would be the Perkins diesel. Towing a 6 or 7 moldboard plough. Again, a common thing used in this area for tilling the ground before you sowed your crop. We're waiting on a few more tractors. Some of these are being a little bit awkward in not starting by the looks. The Bulldogs require a hot bulb to be heated before they can be started, and you can see there's a couple there going with the heater on at the moment. As you can see, a lot of the members of this club and others who have driven past already are now getting ready to start another unit. We call this musical tractors. We are always short of members. Anyone who would like to join our club or any other club, machinery club, we're always looking for younger people to become involved. We need younger people so that we can teach them what we know and carry on the tradition of running these things for generations to come. The square at the moment is a little David Brown Crop Master, about a 30 horsepower. These were an extremely popular tractor made in England, but they had a very, very good 3-point linkage system and a belt pulley out the back. Were known to be reliable. Let's hope this one is, because it started to behave silly. Thank you, Colin. Favourite tractors. This is my favourite tractor coming here. It's a Lawson, I think it's about 1925, and it's driven by Rex from our club, Rex Simons. Wisconsin 4-cylinder vertical motor, hand clutch. Here we have a 1952 Deutz coming into view. Deutz made a whole variety of tractors, and then later on became manufactured air-cooled Deutz tractors, which were very popular in their era. This one here, very strong tractor. Thank you. Chamberlain Champion. As we saw before, a couple of varieties of Chamberlains. Here's another one, and they were a champion tractor. Hedley Cock on his favourite tractor, a Fordson N. Hedley restored this tractor, did a mighty job of it. Sometimes it becomes very irritating for him when it doesn't want to start, but here she is running along nicely. This tractor was made in the late 1930s through to the very early 1940s. Prior to that was the Fordson F model, which is the unit that's coming into view now. Driven by John Anderson from the Barossa Machinery Club. Notice the type of wheel tracks on the back. These were for muddy conditions. Not proving to be the best for comfort for the rider. can't tell you much about this, but it's again one of the Booleroo Club tractors. Not quite fully restored, but in good running order. Model B, made in 1938. A great little market garden tractor. You see it's offset just a little bit so that the operator can see what he's driving over, perhaps rows of lettuce or cauliflower or whatever. And very honest, reliable tractors these were. Bulldog, driven by a Lance Bulldog owner who's a member of the Barossa Valley Machinery Preservation Society, and he just loves his Bulldogs. The Lance that just drove past is 1936. A lot of these tractors are all in that 1920-30 era, and they make up one of the best collections in the Southern Hemisphere. Driven by the owner of this tractor, Jeff Nichols, is a little Newman, single-cylinder vertical, almost like a stationary engine in the front of this under that bonnet. And Jeff restored this, and he's done a magnificent job of it. Lovely little tractor, Jeff. Thank you. Now we're getting rushed with 2 units at once, so we'll deal with the crawler first. It's a little John Deere, driven by Ken Arnold from our club, and he's towing a little small cultivator called a wide line in its day. And the Bulldog is a HR6. Has restored this unit, and he's done quite a few crawlers himself, and he's always a meticulous restorer. This unit's a real credit to him. Thank you, Ken. Here we have Lyndon Brandon driving an International AW, I've got to wait till I see it, 7. Internationals made a good variety of these tractors, were known for their reliability and quite often for their easy starting. They had a very good distributor ignition system, distributor on this, but magneto on the earlier ones. Thank you, Lynn. As I mentioned before, Lynn Brandon was a stalwart member of the club, put in many, many hundreds of hours of dedicated work for this club. Here we have our lady driver again driving a Lance Bulldog. This is a Model J, 1949. Very unusual little tractor, but a very, very scarce tractor, very rare. Fantastic that we have these in our display. Thank you. We have the little D2, still in its original working clothes, looking a mighty smart little unit. Thank you, Jeff. Caterpillar Holt, running nicely, driven by Colin from our club. Thank you, Colin. Followed by another Caterpillar Holt, but this one's a little 2-tonner. Looking again, I think it's a 2, could even be a Cat 10. No, it's a 2-ton, driven again by John Anderson from the Barossa Club. These crawlers were fairly prolific around this area in that the local dealers used to promote their product, and the Caterpillar Holts and then later on the Caterpillars were very, very popular. The orange one coming up is an Alice Chalmers Model M, about 1930s era, and it's towing a small Brit stand 1.5 yard rollover scoop. My father built a number of dams on his property out in the Mallee, out from Loxton, using a rollover scoop like that. And you wouldn't think that a tiny little scoop of that size would be able to build a dam holding 2 million gallons. But that's what he did. You will see the 1910 Caldwell Vale truck coming. This one has been a mighty effort from our club members to restore this. It's one of only 3 known in Australia, one of only 2 that's in working order. They were made in Sydney, and it is 4-wheel drive and has power steering on it. Power steering works on a winch arrangement where the chains to each of the front wheels go around a different size of cylinder, and as you wind the chains, the amount of pressure on the chains changes. And you can see he's only got a very small steering wheel, and yet it's quite easy to steer. We had a lot of trouble with this unit when we first got it going, smoking too much, and we sort of almost eliminated that problem. Driven by Peter Gerhardt from Port Pirie, he has put endless number of hours into this unit. I'm sure he's feeling proud driving it right now. The wheels and tyres, they don't have tyres and tubes, just solid rubber. This is a Lance Bulldog Model P, 1938 era. Again driven by a lady driver. She's doing a mighty job, don't you think? Another one of the tractors in the Booleroo collection. Thank you. Again driving a Caterpillar 22 petrol Kero Brawler, a lovely little unit this one. Thank you, Headley. The light green truck coming into view is a 1924 Garford. This truck is in the care of the Barossa Valley Machinery Preservation Society, and it was donated to our club by the owner's wife after he passed away. It spent a lot of its life at the marble quarries at Angaston, and it carted marble rock from there down to Port Adelaide in its life. Later on it was restored, and as I said, after the owner passed away, it was donated to our club so that it could be displayed regularly for people to see a unit like this. And that's a fantastic gesture because it gets the truck out and about instead of sitting in someone's shed rotting away where nobody can appreciate it. Following is another Barossa Club truck. We had this donated also to our group from a vineyard in the Barossa Valley, and we've had to do very little work to make that presentable. This truck is obviously a local truck from Jamestown, driven by a person on an outside entry, so I don't know any information on that one. Now, the Historic Vehicles Club
vehicles are coming. 1964 International AB 110 Ute. A little bit unique, it's a long wheelbase, nicely restored. Behind that we have the 1983 Kenworth Caterpillar motor in that. It's nicely painted up, and that's an old paint job of about 25 years ago. 13-speed Road Ranger. Then we have an F500 Ford, been restored with a straight 6 Canadian motor. Then we have grunt up front. This is a B87 Mac. Now this is fairly heavy duty. The Cummins 380 horsepower motor originally had a 5-speed main, 4-speed auxiliary, but now it's a Mac quad box. Triple skin chassis, 24-inch wheels, ex-highways department of about 130 tonne gross combination weight. Next one is 1980 Kenworth with a 430 horse Cummins, only second owner, was 3 years old when he got it, immaculate condition and currently still working. Next one is a 1969 Mac, unrestored, 250 horsepower C motor, which is a Mac motor. Next little blue Dodge is Brian. He's come all the way from Melbourne. He come to a few of our rallies, enjoyed it himself. It's just a little late 40s, I guess, Dodge. It's written here somewhere where I can find it, 1949 Dodge. Next little comma is a 1949 comma Super Poise Q25 is a model, 1.25 tonne capacity. They have a little 4-cylinder, 2.3 litre side valve motor. That truck comes from Wyala. Nice little truck, gets around to every rally. The next one, the Bedford, that's 1968. Bedford, all restored, that's from Adelaide. They come regular to rallies. We have quite a number of trucks that regularly come. We enjoy each other's company and all that, and we have a real good time, good social outing. Move forward. Comes the steam truck, the Yorkshire. There's certainly not too many of these around. Wagon number 34, made in 1903. Set out here and ended up at Wyala in BHP, and they very kindly put it in the corner of their yard for about 50 years. Then rang us up and said, "Oh, do you want this?" And we said yes.
and perform a lot better than they have in the past. Like everything else, you get practice at these things, and away you go. Of course, the only trouble with these things is you have to get up 2 hours earlier to get the steam up before you can do anything. Weighs 9 tonne. Used at the marine and harbours for rolling asphalt on jetties. So, interesting life. It's certainly got an interesting steering on it anyway. Got the wheel turned on the lock, round it goes, pulled itself out the ground. Straightening up. Down she goes into the ground, ploughs. Only got 3 tines on it because we don't want to overload it. Normally if it was ploughing it had 9 tines. We're going to change the cables over now. They're going to pull the scoop down now. Over she comes. Too much. The steam engines are only working under 60 pound PSI instead of 120. Right, they'll wind the bucket halfway up. Right, he's got his load in his bucket and he's heading back across the bottom of the dam up onto the bank wall, which is 400 yards away. So you can see that they wouldn't actually do a lot in a day. That's why it took them 6 months to make a dam. they're actually going to tip that out now. When it's up, it levels the top of it, makes a nice heap. Now they go back and get another one. But they had no other option. They had that or nothing. You can't put a bank across a creek up there because they're all gravel bottoms and the water just goes straight down through. So they're actually going to tip that out now.
Booleroo Centre grew to service the needs of farming families, and it is this agricultural history that has shaped the township. It earned its name as the centre of the Survey 100 of Booleroo, derived from an Aboriginal word roughly translated to place of mud. Today, Booleroo Centre is still a service centre for the grain and livestock producers of the surrounding areas. In the early days, all goods from the farm went by bullock teams to Port Germain. The railways opened on the 27th of April 1910, so all products from the farm could be moved faster and easier. Nowadays the rumble of trains has gone, but once a year Booleroo Centre comes alive to the smell of smoke, steam, and sounds of tractors and stationary engines. In 1968, Booleroo Centre first comes alive to the sound of old tractors and traction engines on Brian Northerhase's property. How did it all begin? Brian would attend clearing sales, where he saw a lot of old tractors being sold for scrap. The thought was, if this continues there wouldn't be any of the old machines left for future generations to appreciate. It all comes about by one man's dream. Then joined by other like-minded people, the Booleroo Steam and Traction Society was formed. Since that first rally in 1968, the collection has grown. The society moved to the Booleroo Oval, where they set up the museum they have today. With a lot of hard work in restoring those tractors, old farm machinery and steam-powered engines to have this great collection they have now. It gives the younger generation a chance to see how farming machines and practices have changed. The Booleroo Steam and Traction Preservation Society Museum is a world-class display that attracts visitors from all over the world. The museum features South Australia's largest collection of steam and traction engines, with more than 150 machines on permanent display. Lined up along the fence you will find Fowler ploughing engine, Fowler single-cylinder ploughing engine, Yorkshire steam wagon, Aveling and Porter standard steam roller and Aveling and Porter P-type tandem roller. All were being fired up ready for the demonstration of those engines. Before the gates are open to the public, work has already started on the steam-powered machines. Light-up and preparation work involves the inspection of the machine, checking water level before a fire is lit. While warming the engine, it is time to oil and grease all the moving part. Fill a bunker with wood ready for the day's activities. Yorkshire Steam Wagon, number 34, of 1903, by the Yorkshire Patent Steam Wagon Company of Leeds, England. It is the oldest known surviving Yorkshire in the world, imported by T. Russell of Geelong, Victoria, and used by Smith and Timms in Adelaide, South Australia, before going to Whyalla, South Australia for use in the construction of the town's first dam. It finished its working life in 1918, while one person goes about filling the bunker with wood, while another person does the oiling and check of the moving parts. On the Fowler ploughing engine, the operator has to climb up onto the top to oil all moving part and check everything good to go. No, it is not sauce, but oil he is putting in the oil pots. Number 4390, 16 HP compound. A pair was supplied new to the South Australia colony government in 1882. Purchased by J.D. McTaggart in 1908 for work on the Nonning lease. Major overhauls in 1927 included new crankshafts and a half-barrel shell which was drilled and hammer riveted by station staff under supervision from Horwood Bagshaw, used until 1942. Showing the builder's plate of John Fowler and Company of Leeds. Unlike your car, you just don't turn a key to start these machines. You are starting off with a cold, lifeless lump of steel. You have to bring it to life by building up steam pressure. Those machines are alive and breathing because they take work to keep them going. You must keep putting wood on the fire and water in the boiler when required. Vertical boiler made by Hawke and Company, Kapunda, South Australia, and used by the railways at Farina on the Elgan line. Ryder hot air engine, safer than steam engines. These required less attention and were popular for pumping water from streams or shallow wells. They relied on expansion and contraction of air due to alternately heating the air by fire and cooling by water to move a piston from one end of the cylinder to the other. Blackstone engine number 123,545, type RCG, 115 HP at 195 revolutions per minute, bore 18 inches, stroke 24 inches. Features include air blast injection and hot bulb ignition. It was tested by the factory on the 4th of January 1917 before being exported to Clutterbuck Brothers of Adelaide, South Australia. It was used to pump water at Mapalonga Pumping Station, South Australia. The last time it was used was during the 1956 floods, where it was driving two centrifugal pumps of approximately 18 inches diameter.
To start with. This is how the Pioneer started. There you are. Just imagine that tractor's a horse, and It's got a mind of its own, but that's how they used to plough the ground to prepare it for sowing of their seed. And when they ploughed it like that, they got a harrow and they harrowed it, and then they went along with a tray with wheat in it and scattered it and then harrowed it in. So that's how they started off. Like everything else, bigger, better and stronger. Still only a single furrow plough. It's just a little bit bigger, and it will take. You can see this is a much bigger plough. Now he's starting to bite in a bit, but when he gets into that furrow, they probably might nearly have had to have 2 horses to pull that one. Next plough is 115 years old, made in Carrington, South Australia, which is about 70 kilometres north of Booleroo Centre, in a factory that employed 70 men. Invention was a great piece of invention. People that had a post hole digger. My father and his brother used to go out on moonlight nights after tea and dig post holes. Now that's a fair undertaking, and they did it with a crowbar and a shovel. Where you take your life into your hands. This is called a buck scraper. Now, it doesn't take much imagination to understand why they called it a buck scraper. This scraper was used for cleaning out silt out of a dam. And what used to go on, that was all right. But if it happened to hit a stone, then it came into your own because it bucked around all over the place. There you are. He's got another one. And back you come. Now that's what you call an effort. And if you think you want to do that all day, it's not fun probably. But they did it. If you go into the building, down there you'll see some photos on the wall of 3 horse teams cleaning out a dam with 3 buck scrapers. And there was 8 horses at each team. So you can see, very simple, very crude. But man, is it hard work. He deserves a round of applause for that, because I can tell you that's hard work. Yeah. Now, this scoop's a lot smarter than the buck scraper. You've got the lever on the side, holds the cut, so that you can vary the cut. You can drag it to wherever you want to, then you tip it out, level it, and go again. So that's the improvement. So this is getting into the modern age. This is one of Harry Ferguson's many inventions he made up. I'm not sure how many pieces of equipment he made for the Ferguson, but it was quite a few. They had front unloaders and scrapers and blades and all sorts of things. There you are. One-man operation, and you can see that's a lot smarter than having 2 to operate. Now we're going back to the 1800s and 90s, give you a demonstration of how they made dams in those days, compared to the bulldozer that is sitting over there, and that's 1950. So that's 60 years old. This is 120 years old. So you can see that they made a fairly big improvement in those years. Now, the engine operators are communicating with one another with hand signals. Now the ploughman is going to do a switch around. Right, drop her in the ground, lad. You pull the lever, and in the ground she goes. These were used in the outbank to make earth tanks so they could run sheep. originally. The water was the problem. They had to have great big dams, 800 yards apart the banks were, and they used to go out there. There was a crew of 23, there was wood carters and wood choppers, water carters, all sorts of things. There was 9 tines on this piece of equipment, but we only used 3. The steam engine down on the west end, he's got it in the neutral. He's giving him the whine signal. And we will pull on the rope. The rope will pull the turntable on top. It does 2 things, it turns it around, but all the same time, it pulls the plough out the ground. Now he's on his way back. He pulls the lever and back in the ground. The steam engine usually works at 120 psi. These steam engines only work at 60. Reason being, we don't want to damage them. Now I'd like you to notice this operation. He is going to bring the ploughing engine forward. The scoop is filling up. So you can see they've got a scoop full. Was the founder of this group, 48-year rally, and he would have been going another 4 or 5 years prior to that for his first rally, but he would have been collecting way before that again. In honour of him, we will be running red tractor. I'll say the red tractor so that you all know which one we're talking about. It's the Mogul, and that will be going first, and that will be followed by the Caldwell Vale, which is the big truck with the men sitting up top. The gentleman up the top in the white shirt and the little pea cap, his name is Trevor Caldwell, 4th or 5th generation of the original builder of this unit. He's just over the moon to be able to have a ride on this machine made by his relative. This
is a 1910 unit. It came to us as a whole mass of bits and pieces, and we've spent many hours and quite a few $1,000s restoring this unit. It's four-wheel drive and has power steering. The driver is Peter Gerblick from Port Pirie. This was one of the first tractors that Brian Kinnearhouse collected and restored. It was one of only about 20 that he restored. The orange tractor in front of me is a Chamberlain 40K. This was the first model that Chamberlain's made in Western Australia. Getting back to the Mogul, quite an achievement to restore this particular unit. You can see the size of it, and for one man to do that, collect all the bits and pieces, it's quite an achievement. A Lance Bulldog Model S, 1953. This is still a bit difficult to the other Bulldogs in it has a two-cylinder engine. This is a lovely restored Fordson E27N petrol Kero, belonged to the club, and he's towing a hay rake. The hay rake would work with somebody sitting on the seat, working the lever, and they'd rake the hay up into rows. John Deere Lindemann tractor, crawler. He's towing 7-furrow mailboard plough. And that's driven by the owner, Ken Arnott from Booleroo. This is a very, very early Alice Chalmers Model U, come out from America. When these were built, they were one of the strongest tractors around. This came originally from Morgan, then it went over to Yongala, and it was compared to a team of 10 to 20 horse. So that just gives you an example of the power. Going past me again is this very early Kelly and Lewis, driven by one of our young ladies who's just so keen to hop on her tractor, or one of these tractors. Here we have a WD2 Newman. Has a tiny little motor in that front bonnet area there, one cylinder, three-wheeled, designed for market garden type of work, and that's owned by Jeff here from Booleroo. Here we have a McDonald Imperial Super Diesel. These were made at Ballarat in Victoria. Good old Australian made, single cylinder, horizontal diesel, running on crude oil. Quite an interesting and unusual tractor. Coming up now is Phil Jeske driving his grandfather's tractor, and it's the oldest Bulldog here. You can tell by the shape and size of the engine. You can also tell that Phil loves driving these tractors.
The first tractor in the collection that was restored by my father, Lewis Jeske, who was in the original foundation club. This tractor has got 4 forward gears, but it doesn't have a reverse. So to tuck it into the shed, you've got to reverse the engine.
This lovely cross-engine case coming past us now is driven by Hedley Cock, who owned it originally. The motor is different to all the others in that it goes across the frame, thus the name cross-engine case. It's called an 1832. 18 means it has 18 brake horsepower at the drawbar and 32 horsepower at the belt pulley. Made in 1926. A reliable broad acre paddock in its heyday. Lance Bulldog is a Model N, 1936. We have talked about it before, 2-cylinder, opposed, hot bulb ignition, runs on crude oil. It develops 40 brake horsepower on the belt pulley and 30 on the toe. It's purchased in 36 on steel wheels, used for farming in the Wallachara area, which is just above Booleroo Centre. And and then at Quorn pulling a 24-hoe shearer combine. Later it was recovered from Murraytown and fully restored. Is an international truck driven by Andrew Todd from Port Pirie, 1922. As the 1922 version, and he's accompanied by our new member David. Notice the tyres, they're solid rubber, no need for windscreen wipers. 1020 McCormick Deering driven by Bryce Pole from the Barossa Valley Club, beautifully restored, purring like a kitten. McCormick Deering 1530, 1927, 4-cylinder. It was originally fitted with a gas producer and worked with that unit that's on the back. This particular unit is a magnificent Holt model M29, made in 1924. It's a 4-cylinder, fairly big motor, 4 3/4 by 6-inch stroke. 3 forward gears, 1 reverse. We don't know a lot about its previous history, but it came originally from Kalunga, which is just above Clare and Brinkworth. And we're really proud to own this unit because there's not very many of them around. I know of one in an unrestored condition in Adelaide itself, but I don't know of any others around this area. And even though it's made in 1924, just have a listen to that motor. It's just purring without any hiccups. You can almost sense the feeling of power. We have the white steamer leading the old cars. We're very, very pleased to see that in the lead. The owner of this has brought this unit all the way over from Ballarat, and we're just excited to have this vehicle here to show off to you today. If you get a chance after the parade, talk to the owner. He's got that bowler hat on, and he is just a wealth of knowledge. So we picked up a few passengers, and he should be moving off shortly. Take particular note, you should hear nothing as it drives past. Come the old cars. This is a 1923 grey. This is a very popular vehicle in the NARC Club, Northern Automotive Restoration Club, based at Port Broad and covers all this area. It was bought off of Don Wilston when he folded the Girolka Rural Museum. Restored within a year, and it is one of only very few in existence in the world.